Hey y'all, it's great to be back. We're back from Israel. I miss it so much. I don't think I've ever missed a place like I've missed Israel. Jerusalem's included in that, but just the whole nation, even with all of its funny quirks and tense areas and minefields and IDF everywhere, like it was fun. We just got to enjoy meeting the people was probably my favorite part, and just seeing what the Lord is doing there now, and seeing how important a correct view and articulation of the end times is such an important part of the gospel when you're preaching Jesus in the Middle East. And so anyway, more on that. If you follow the YouTube channel that my wife and I have together, it's the smallest one of all three of them. So there's her channel, which is bigger than mine, and then my channel. And then people on both channels were asking us more personal questions or wanting to get just kind of sneak peeks into our lives or different things. And so that one goofy channel I did a couple years ago that got like a whole 20 subscribers. All my old goofy videos are still up there, by the way. But we turned that channel into a family vlog. So there's a couple of those posts, and then all my old videos. So if you're subscribed to that, if you're not, it's just David Lee and Allie Brown family vlog or something like that. You can find it. It's not hard to find. And we'll be posting a fuller debrief of our trip and videos and pictures and stuff. And so, man, there was a lot of construction going on back there. But anyway, I don't want to take up too much time because this is going to be a long video. And so, this just because my pedal board's so big, that's what you can't, it's out of the frame right now, but I'm like hitting it with my hands. Anyway, I'm going to open up my pedal board and run through it because Kelly was asking about my pedal board setup. And so I'm going to go through it just as quickly and introductory as I can. So Kelly or others, if you want to see like specific pedals showcased in my style, because the thing that I found in demoing pedals on YouTube and watching other demos is people are not using them most of the time for what I want to use them for. And so you guys have heard my style with the audio Bible and what I really want to use the pedals for. And so it's kind of difficult to hear. So if you want to hear something specific related to ambient guitar playing, like how does this pedal fit with that, then let me know. But I'll try to give you just kind of a basic intro, but it will be a long video because my pedal board is so big. It comes up to my belly button, you guys. It's funny. But anyway, it's worth it. I didn't get all these pedals at once, so people see the whole pedal board and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. But I started several years ago, and I pastor a house of prayer, and then I lead worship in the house of prayer during the week as well. And so I get a lot of hours of playing and singing, and so this pedal board has just developed over the years as I'm just looking at one pedal at a time, and then as it builds, like seeing how this pedal fits with the whole repertoire of sounds that I have. I have other pedals that don't fit on this board that are in past videos, and you'll notice if you paid attention to the really old one or you've seen the old one recently, then you'll see what's different. But I'm just going to go through my current run through, and then again, if you have any questions, please ask, and then I'm happy to do other pedal demos to show you exactly how I'm using what pedal or how I'm using different ones together. And even some of the ones that aren't on my board that I'm not going to show in this video are like the B9 organ machine that I use in place of a POG, if you're familiar with what the POG is from EHX. The Arpanoid by Earthquaker Devices, which is a great arpeggiator, but I don't use it a whole lot live, and so that's why it's not on my board. Those are the two big ones that aren't. I got rid of some of the reverb pedals that I didn't really like, or some of the, I replaced a small flashback delay with the Chase Bliss Thermae that you'll see on my board now. And so what I have in my board is a combination of live playing and recording, but really geared around my live playing, because I can plug in any other effect I need to when I'm recording, but it's really all geared around my live playing and my acoustic guitar. So this is a huge pedal board for acoustic guitar players, but it's because I've been wanting to create like different washes behind me as I'm even just playing live, or being able to do ambient patty synthy stuff even on my acoustic guitar. It's been really effective, and I've kept my signal chain very clean with the power supplies that I'm using. So I'll show you how I do all that with my acoustic, and I do use a compressor. I'll show you the compressor I use for the acoustic. But what I like about the setup is it's also geared towards me playing electric guitar live and filling more of a lead and an ambient background as well when I'm not playing bass on the team and I'm on electric. And so rarely do I play electric. I probably play that the least as far as just in a live setting with the band. Again, it's just all really on acoustic guitar, but I'm wasting time in front of the camera when I can just open this thing up and show it to you. So Kelly, thank you for the nudge to do a fresh gear video. I know I talk about that on YouTube, like I have gear videos, but I've done more teaching and updates. And so anyway, this is going to be fun. And so if you're familiar with my wife's channel, Allie, who does the Journal With Me videos, this is the Come Play With Me and hear all the sounds instead of colors that I play with. And so I'm going to open this thing up. And just to give you kind of like a size reference, this thing, my goodness, is humongous. So we're going to open this up and I'll show you the stuffs. I had this flight case built, custom made. I handmade the actual board, the wood and the Velcro stuff, and then once everything was together, measured it, and Kangaroo Cases actually built this flight case for me, because this has been overseas when we go on mission trips or plant prayer rooms. And we have one session where we teach on meditation, and then I play 2 hours of just a instrumental to give people time to meditate in the Word and write stuff down from Scripture. I'll explain more later, but this is stereo, so I use 2 inputs. And so even when I play live, I try to use 2 inputs. That would be a left and a right. And I record that way, and so that way some of the reverbs and the delays sound a lot bigger than if it was just one single channel or mono. So I'm going to get this plugged up. Alright, and I'm still plugging this thing up, but I'm going to tell you about some just technical stuff. How I keep my signal chain clean, because the more pedals you have and the more junk you have going on down here, it will create a static in your line that gets really, really noisy. And so the things you can do to clean it up is just to have good, fresh cables. But something I do is I have this Hum X, which is independent from just my regular plug, and it cleans up the power a little bit, especially since I have so much going on here. Also, this Walrus, I went with this one because you can power bigger pedals, but if you don't have a 300 amp, you have switches or these toggles down here so that you can not waste an output, and so you can switch it to a high voltage or just the regular 9 volt 100 to 300 amp on these. And so I have these switched down because they're all 9 volts. The big pedals are 300 amp and everything else is 100 amp 9 volt. And so I was able to use all the inputs out of this, and I have one extra pedal than I have inputs, but because the Boss has an input and a power output, I'm using this one to power, I think, the Freeze. And so I have this powered by the power supply, and then the output is going underneath into this guy over here. Also, there's just a regular wall outlet, so I usually play with the vocal pedal also over here and just plug it in to the back. So I only need one input when I bring all of this stuff in. So I just plug the power into the back. Electro harmonics pedals, let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 on my board. This one's okay, but the others have personality. And the B9 organ machine that I have in the closet, it's got some quirks that you got to work out. And so for this one, I have to unplug it at the top before I power it up. Otherwise, when I power it up, it won't work. Bam, and there everything is. And then I just plug it in, and it seems to work fine. And so for this video, so that you can hear the effects coming out of the amp, which is nothing special, it's just a Behringer keyboard amp that's static from the reverb stuff that's dying down. So this is my acoustic and electric setup. I use it mainly for acoustic, but again, for the video, I'm just going to use my electric. I really like the sound of this Dean EVO Special. I got this for Allie when we were in high school together, so it's old, but, well, not that old, I guess. Early, like 2000, 2001 maybe. I got it for her when Dean first came out. But I like the sound of it, very versatile. But what's genius about this setup is even when I play electric, I don't need an amp, because on the back of this Big Sky pedal, there's a cab filter. And I'll just turn the cab filter on and it gives me an EQ curve like I have an amp for my electric. But regardless if I'm playing electric or acoustic, my preference is to run straight into the system. And this gives me just on that cab filter, which has nothing to do with the rest of the pedal. It's just a nice feature that they have on the back of the Big Skies. Just frees me up to not have to have an amp. So, I'm going to just play electric for y'all today. And that is my tuner. It's not in the signal chain, it's just coming as an output from the volume pedal. So, as I have the volume pedal rolled back, it'll still give me a signal. Alrighty. That's it for now. And I'm just going to go in order of my signal chain to show you what I've got. So I like this Walrus Deep 6 compressor because it's subtle enough. If you can see where the dials are at, the blends that way, the attack is about that way, the sustain, which is more of a gain control, is not all the way up. A lot of guys play it halfway up. That's kind of too much for me. And then the level is here, just over halfway, and the blend is just up. Not much at all. The attack is a slower attack, and I have it like that because I want the dynamics of the acoustic, but I don't want to lose so much volume when I go from strumming to finger picking. And so the compressor helps me out greatly. I don't know if you can tell a difference between just it's hard to hear compressors in a recording, honestly, unless you're hearing it like on an actual CD, but on a mic it's kind of hard, but it squashes the signal, takes your high volume and your low volume, and it will even out the volume, like completely even, or I like dynamic still, and so if my highs are way up here, my low volume stuff is way down here, I'll use it to kind of even it out. So I have a little bit of a dynamic range, but if I'm loud and then I drop out to real subtle stuff, you'll get the softness of it, but I'm not going to lose a lot of volume. So compressor is my first thing going in here, and I absolutely love the compressor. For the sake of the video and just playing electric, I have a higher blend and a faster attack rate for my electric. Anyway, I like the compressor sound. Next is I actually go right into this synth, and this I change out whether it's the synth or the B9, and all these two do is just mimic other keyboards, is what the 9 series is doing. So this is a synth, this is the Mellotron 9, and so this has different synth controls. I use this a lot on the Book of Revelation, especially at the end of tracks where we're building in dynamics. I don't really like it by itself. And it's really, really noisy. But what I liked it for was if I put a good amount of reverb, and I mean a good amount of reverb. Then it would sound cool. So let me see what this one does. reverb and delay seem to kind of smooth these out, especially if you're rolling in the volume. And there's just different types of synths on here. You can find, if you want me to do a fuller like sound thing on it, then I will, but it's just a nice little undertone to have in some of the stuff. If you listen to Revelation, you'll hear this thing a whole lot. There's one where I use this with the tremolo for the main track, but for the most part I use these for kind of swells that were coming up to create like a tense dynamic thing. This one, I like the voices and the strings or the cello on this one, and both of these, this one depends on the setting. This one and the B9 organ machine, which is not on my board right now, they have a dry and an effect, and so let's see. So very, very 60s sounding from when the Mellotron was actually created. So this is made to mimic the Mellotron. What I use it for a lot is I'll have a heavy dry signal and a little bit of effect with, again, just a lot of good reverb and a delay, and then I'll roll stuff in so it sounds a little bit more natural. So you can hear the reverb and the delay carrying it. So it takes more pedals to make these sound good. By themselves, I do not like them at all. But they're nice to have on the board to change things up. So for instance, let's see, here's a loop that I have. So you get kind of how I use it. I use it mainly for softer strings on this one. The organ machine is really cool. It functions the same, just has different pre-programmed organs, which seems like it's based off of their POG. It's just kind of pre-recorded settings based off the POG. Now, I have, so far we have this in my signal chain, and then I go to the volume pedal. Because these do not track that well, and so they need a good, like, bam, you can't roll in a volume. So if I hit the pick attack with the volume up, and the signal's already going to these, and then I can roll in the volume, it seems to even it out and work a lot better for me. So that's why these are before the volume pedal with the compressor. The compressor doesn't matter so much, but that way all these are working in full force before I roll in my sound. So next, out of this, I go into my Overdrive, which was built by my sister. She used to work for Keeley and Electroharmonics, and she built a killer Overdrive, which is just like a mild distortion pedal. She's got good volume and EQ stuff on here, and the drive. I use this real subtly. My favorite feature is a blend. You don't see this a lot on distortion pedals where you can blend in your dry signal. And so you can just have a subtle little crunch on it. So this one is the blend. The EQ is really good, so it really sounds great on either guitar. This is called the Blessed Mother, and when you turn it on, it's funny because the heart lights up and the halo lights up around Mary. She's not Catholic, but she lived in New York, and there's a lot of people that love the Blessed Mother up there. And so anyway, good little overdrive pedal. I use it a lot for my tremolo picking. So on what album was it? Moravian Spirit. There's 2 tracks on there where I use this with reverb behind my tremolo picking, and it just gives it like this huge string sound. And I'm going to see if I can duplicate that right now. We'll see what happens. Anyway, so there's a lot of reverb and delay going behind there, and I'm just hitting my string like that pretty much, and it all blends it together. Kind of has like this combo of a synth and a string pit sound all together in one. It's a really cool sound. It's my favorite time I used this with that tremolo picking was on the track called Ekbalo on Moravian Spirit. It comes in at the end where it's just kind of over just some simple keyboard stuff that's just been sitting there. Next is the Freeze. This is so handy. So when I'm playing live and I want something behind me, or I just need to take a break for a little bit, like go to the restroom or get a drink or something and then come back to playing, I'll hit the Freeze, and you can set the volume. There's different ways you can use it. I usually use it on this toggle just on latch. So as soon as you hit that, it's going to freeze whatever you play. So if I'm playing an E major, which I play in most of the time, and then hit this, it'll freeze my root chord, and then I can play anything in E major over it. So here we go, we'll do that. And so that's the volume for it, but you can hear it just kind of sit in there. So anyway, a great little pedal. Sometimes I use this because I don't just let it sit there like that, and I'm getting ahead of myself, I'm sure, but I'll turn on some other effects with the Freeze, and so I've got some more stuff going on. So I'll give it a pitch shifting delay, some random envelope filter stuff with some sample and hold, a little bit of delay on it, and then some reverb. And so you'll see how it kind of stacks and turns into, really it's a track in itself in its own right. So that's it. And to get rid of the tone, you just double click it and it will go away. So that's that. The next one I have it's called the Dark Star, and it had some witchcrafty stuff on it, so I colored over some things and put the Love Star. I didn't really like the name, but I really like the concept of the pedal. And it's just got some more creepy, like, undertone. Creepy might be the wrong word. It might be the right word. You tell me. Just these undertones. And so it's got 3 settings: a pitch, a delay, and a bit cruncher. And all of it doesn't do these things to my actual guitar signal, but it creates a reverb signal behind it and then puts either a pitch shifter or a delay or a bit cruncher on my reverb signal. And so this blends in the affected reverb signal, and I can go full wet if I want to, or just however loud I want my dry signal and the mix to be. This is the decay of the effect, and so I'm going to keep it a little over halfway so you can mainly hear what the pedal's doing. And these will shift octaves, and so that's 1 octave down, that's the octave you're playing on, and that's an octave up. And so there's no like knot where you can get precisely when you're switching these things, so you can get some pretty weird atonal sounds. So I'll show you what I mean. Also, this one, if you go all the way up, it will lock in this, it will freeze the setting that you had it on. So anyway, I'll just play a little bit. This one's the delay. So you can just kind of hear like this bagpipey sound as the reverb is repeating behind what I'm playing. The top, that's the middle setting. The top one is a pitch. I'm going to start with an octave down, and both these are independent, so I can stay an octave down and then go up. So you'll hear what that sounds like. So I use that sometimes. I also really like the bit cruncher. And so this one becomes your crunch rate, slow crunch, fast crunch. And then this one is your octave. And so I typically like the lower octave, and then controlling my crunch rate is how I use it most of the time. So anyway, just a fun little creepy pedal of a guy. This one would take so long to go through. You see all the knobs here, and then there's all these dip switches across the top, which are, if you're familiar with Chase Bliss pedals, that's just their normal thing. But this is an analog delay, and you can do your normal delay channel, and then these two channels also do a pitch shifting delay. And so I have a couple settings that I like to use. You can turn it on so the pitch shift goes like right into it, or you can glide it up so it'll sound like a synth, which is one of my favorite ones. So I'll turn that on and just do some of that. So I'm a lot more busy than I usually am, just because I'm trying to get it to work for you. If this is featured a lot in the Revelation, for Love of the Word, and in Of the Cross, the newest album that I did. You'll hear a lot of those glides. Also in Cling, the song where I actually sing. I don't have an amazing singing voice, but the Lord just gripped me with the song a couple months ago. This is my setting for Cling. If you've heard that, you'll recognize this behind it. It's not a separate track, it's just this pedal playing with what I'm playing on the guitar. So anyway, that's what that does. You can program fifths, fourths, octaves, 1 octave, 2 octave, up or down. Control the beat that it shifts on, and all kinds of fun things. You can get into a lot of modulation stuff, making it sound really interesting with these switches, and just a really, really fascinating pedal, and great just kind of underneath. This one and this one are just really good underneath kind of some of the main tracks, and just provide more texture and layers to a lot of my looping that I do. So I really, really like those. This is a good one. I use try not to overuse it, but I like it live. It hangs with me well in live playing and not just recording. This one I use more for looping when I want a weird sound. This one is just a envelope filter. So it's like a wah pedal, but kind of just a wah pedal you can dial in and not have to stomp. And so it's got different, typical settings of... And so, typical wall pedal, why I was sold on this one is because of the random sample and hold filter. So in the middle, it's got some really cool settings where it just randomly like skips around instead of going up and down. So anyway, I like that one. I like goofing around with it, and as all my things, like a lot of reverb really makes stuff sound good to me, and so I like this pedal. The Arpanoid was here before, and I replaced the Arpanoid with this on my live board, just because this was way more useful to me live. This one is just, I know it's got a weird face on it, but it's a chorus pedal. And so when I play electric with the band, I really like that, I don't know if you're familiar with the sound that the Goo Goo Dolls use for their electric guitars. So it's not so crunchy. I use a little bit of distortion with just a teeny bit of this. Really, really subtle. I don't know if you'll hear the difference on my typical setting. It just kind of spices it up a little bit, and especially when you combine it with that, it's just a different sounding distortion. Here it is without it. And then we'll do it with it. That's probably my typical setting, so subtle for the recording that you probably can't hear it that much. If you listen to the end of the Kling song, you'll be able to notice a different type of distortion when the dynamics come up, and it's a distortion that really cuts through, and so that's when I kick this on with the overdrive. But it gets really, really wonky, and so you can make it sound real like warbly and spacey and stuff, and speed things up, toggle different things, and which is really cool for if you have something going on and then you just want some like spacey, weird sounding, chilled out lead line. I'm gonna see if it'll work with my loop here. Not so much that loop, but you get the idea. Cool stuff. So that's that one. Now that's my signal chain, kind of runs up here. I'll explain these guys in a little bit. Now I go all the way from here back to here. So this is just a booster, but it's the EP Exotic pedal, and so they have some EQ stuff inside. If you take it off, unscrew the plate, and you can warm or cool your signal. But this is basically just a volume booster, but this particular brand does warm the signal kind of nice, in my opinion. Some people don't like the warmth and they would rather it be a little bit drier and just cut through. But I like it. It gives a cool tone, and it just boosts your signal. So if I'm doing here, I'm playing rhythm, and I'm about to go into a solo or something, this will boost my signal, because when you're playing big chords, you're really loud. When you play a guitar solo, you're just really hitting one string pretty much at a time. You might hit two or three, but your volume drops significantly, and so you can, it's just one switch, real easy, and it just gives you enough boost to keep you in the mix and maybe sets you a little bit above, since it's a solo, and it warms your signal really nice too. And so that's really all that does. The next one I go into, so this is mainly just for my live playing. I don't use this for recording at all. This is just when I'm, that one rare occasion I'm on electric, that's what this is on here for. So next I go into my first reverb pedal, which I have all my reverbs at the end because I want them to affect the rest of what I just showed you. So I'm coming to the end of my chain, and I set 2 reverbs at the end. This is my first one, and it's just a nice wash behind you. As my goal in reverb, really, especially live acoustic, is to create like a pad behind me, like I have a keyboard player just kind of sitting, chilling behind me. And so this is one of the ones that does that for me. And so you've heard the guitar without any affected signal. So all my sustain is just on if I let the notes ring out and how long the notes will ring out on the guitar. This is just beautiful. This is my wet dry mix. This is the length of my tail. This is something else I'll get to in a second. What this does is it's the volume of a shimmer, so it will go an octave up on my reverb signal. So I use this a lot of time for dynamics. When I'm going from a verse to a chorus, you just hold this button down. When you let off, it starts blinking, and then it will give you a shimmer effect. And so instead of that low wash, it'll be a higher wash. And this is the volume of that shimmer. So your low wash doesn't go away, it's just you have this high wash built on top of it now. And that's all that one does, but it's a very, very handy live pedal. And if you're going to have like one that's going to just take your acoustic guitar playing to the next level, this one would be it. I don't know if they make them anymore. They make the Immerse, but honestly I like this better than the Immerse. I know the Immerse has more options if you're a more versatile guitar player, but for what I'm trying to do, this thing is just beautiful. Also, this is, if you can see it, this is where I go from mono input right here, where it's just one cable, to stereo input where there's a left and a right. And the rest of my chain is that in stereo. And so straight from the Seraphim reverb, I go to the Strymon Big Sky reverb, which is just a beautiful pedal and does so many things well and very unique and gives you sounds that you normally wouldn't have as a guitar player. This thing does everything from the typical reverb, if you're a guitar player, that you're used to hearing, like the room, hall, plate, and spring. This stuff has so much control over the tails, the color of it, the mix, the modulation, other parameters. I mean, this is just really, this is a dream pedal, especially for my style. If you saw on my YouTube channel creating live dynamic synths with an acoustic guitar or something like that, it was really mainly this, and so you'd be familiar with some of my settings on this one, or 3 of my go-to acoustic ones. Which is just a nice little wash. This one is a choral one that goes O, sings like an O behind you. And then this one is the Oz. When we get into this pedal, because I don't know if you heard all those that well, this is when we start getting into these knobs. So this is plugged in here, and it's an expression knob. So instead of taking up space with another pedal that would adjust parameters, it's just a giant knob I can do with my toe. So I have on all three of these settings, you see when I turn it, it adjusts the time of everything. So the max on the Oz is 20 seconds. And so you'll really hear the Oz now that I built up the decay tail. Same with the O's. This one goes a bit longer. This one goes up to like 50 seconds. And so sometimes I'll really just let this one sit. And it's a nice sounding one when it sits too. It sounds like a Pog fueled into it, like a different octaves fueled into it, but it's just letting all the notes just sit for 50 seconds. Eventually fade out at 45.3 seconds. And so those are three of my main settings. There's other things that I use. So if you heard the first track and the last track of the Cross, let me see, bank down, I'm using a full wet reverse. And so if you've heard those tracks, this will sound familiar to you. Oops, I hit a button. All right. And so the last track of the Cross, I was using this setting. Oops, hit the thing again. This setting with this underneath on that setting. I can't remember if I was using a reverse delay. Probably that. And just even a pinch more reverb from this guy was what I was using for that. And also, I had this set to the high choir. So halfway through, I stomp on this. And so that whole last track of On the Cross was one track, one take. And it was just all these working together. And then I had the Shimmer come in at a specific time. And so I didn't start with these two, but I finished with these two. So it was... So what you're hearing is this shift underneath my playing while it's being reverse reverb, delay, a little bit more reverb to just beef out the sound. And then I'll turn on the voices again. So anyway, I like the reverse one. There's a couple other ones that you'd be familiar with. The Trial of Jesus. This one has a shimmer also, but you can program it to do different octaves or just different semitones. to get some atonal stuff, but I have this one, I think I have 2 channels an octave or 2 octaves down. I can't remember what it was, but I was basically just using this as kind of just like that real low punchy bell thing. It'll make sense when I play it, but this is on the last track where it was Jesus's trial and crucifixion for the book of John when I first started the audio Bible. So that's one setting I like, and then these 2 I use for different pads. And so let's see. This is the bloom setting, which I absolutely love. And what I have this program to do is to change the tone of it. So I can go from really bright to really dark. And even if I bring the mix down a little bit, I can still have that quality pad behind me while I'm playing acoustic. So really neat pedal, does amazing reverb things. The next one I have is just this tremolo, which, let me get kind of a cool setting in here. Alright. The reason I have the tremolo after my reverb is, get a hold of this, is I can start breaking up my pad. So you've heard like the cool smooth pads. This will break it up, and you can program this in so many different ways, even program rhythms in it. I have this set to this to control the depth. And so if I do it right, I can turn this on and it won't be affected, but I can slowly roll the affected signal in and give the shape of what you're seeing in these lights a stronger voice, is what I usually do. So I'm going to do just a smooth pad, turn this on, and then bring that in. So anyway, that's what that'll do. You might have recognized that sound from the Proverbs one. I use that sound a lot with that particular pad setting. The next one I go into, and you're not typically supposed to have your delay after your effects. Usually folks will put it before, but I have mine after, mainly because this is a looper. And sometimes it's nice to have the delay after your effects. I do have this delay, which I can turn all the pitch shifting off before I get into my reverb, so I can have that sound as well. But I honestly don't use this as much as I use this, because I have 3 pre-programmed settings. This one is connected to this expression pedal, and it's really only for one setting that I have. So I have 3 pre-programmed settings with the tap tempo here. This can do so many different types of delay, and you can set your divisions on what you want. So a very versatile delay pedal. And so you might recognize this one. I've used this a lot for some of the ones that Ali sings behind. So I have that one on my first setting, and I have this programmed for the length of the tail. And if I hit it there, then it creates almost like a rhythmic pad behind me. And this is this, I think this is the space. Yeah, it's the space setting that I have back there. And then that will shorten the tail and cut it off. So that's my first setting that I have saved. My next one is just a reverse delay. And all the delay is, if you're not familiar, it just echoes your sound, and you can program the echoes. And so this, like the reverse reverb you heard in here, it reverses the delay signal. And so you can do full wet. I do that a lot, but my typical setting is just this. So I like that setting a lot on acoustic as well, and so when I'm just kind of noodling around between songs or doing an instrumental, that's one of my favorite settings that I like. This is just a standard tape echo, and so I play actually, what was I doing the other day? I was with this, with the mix about there, and so let's see. Without the pads, you can just hear the echoing. So anyway, it does that delay. What you can also do is loop stuff. And so this toggle will do the looper, and since I have it stereo, there's a 20-second looper. So I just hit record, and I'm done recording, and it'll just repeat that over and over. And you can continue to layer on top of it, and so that's one of the reasons this delay is at the end, because it's a looper, and I want all my affected sound being able to be recorded in here. Sometimes I actually do use this looper, even though the last thing in my signal chain is this Ditto X4, which is beautiful for an ambient player. There's toggles back here, and you can program how it records. So when I have a loop, so I'm just going to draw a circle here. This will be my start and end point. So I hit start, and I start playing and playing, and then when I'm about done, I hit stop to record, or to stop the recording, and then it will just keep repeating forever, however long I want it to repeat. What's genius about this is I have one of the toggles when I stop it to keep recording, so it doesn't cut off all these, like you've heard my big long reverb that takes forever to fade out, or delays. It will keep recording that once I hit stop. So even though I come back to the stop start spot, it'll keep recording, allow stuff to fade out before I turn off the recording manually. And so both of these are 5-minute loop banks, and they can go together or they can go separate, like a verse and a chorus. And there's different effects on here that you can use. You've probably heard some in the audio Bible and the album. The one I like the most is reverse, so it'll take your whole loop and play it backwards. You have a halftime, which will cut it in half and drop everything an octave lower. you have like a double time, which will increase it by double and take it an octave higher. So on the track Love Feast from Moravian Spirit, I recorded it normal and I recorded it double, and so I have like a real high octave of the loop playing, fading in and out behind that as well. So that one was 2 tracks of the same loop, just recorded at different speeds. And so that's really my setup for now. I hope this wasn't too long, but I hope it was kind of informative. You can look up all these on YouTube, and there's guys with great demos, but it's hard to find, like, if you're interested in my style, it's hard to find how they sound on those. Usually you gotta listen to some dude rocking out and try to think, like, okay, I can apply those sounds to my technique. And so this was when I was surprised. I heard demos of guys rocking out, and it sounded really cool, and I had vision for it, but this one really blew my mind, and it was really, really, really cool. So anyway, if you have any questions about any of these, I'm happy to do a video too for y'all that looks at just one pedal, but that's just a basic overview and how I use some of them together. And so in closing, I'm just going to play a little bit of some of my favorite, just my favorite noodle setting, I call it, where I'm just kind of sitting back and chilling, not really playing a song, but just kind of playing in the prayer room and letting stuff soak. Watching to the end, and thanks for your support. I will see y'all later. Bye.